Hey, it's yours, Wasco team.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Wasco, and this is my wife, Melanie.
Hello.
And we're here to talk a little bit about Write at Home and our literature program, Wasco Lit. So we're going to take, I would guess, about 30 minutes to get through that. And then if that's okay, Katrina, in terms of time, great. And then we're open for questions. If you have any, be happy to answer any that you might have that come along. So let's just jump in. We'll just start with this. Well, I tell you what, let's just introduce ourselves a little bit first, and then we'll jump into this. Okay. As I said, I'm Brian Wasco, and I'm the founder and president of writeathome.com. I started it in 2001, 20 years ago. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary today, or this year. After 10 years of teaching in a public school classroom and then a number of years working with homeschoolers in our local area, which is the southeastern part of Virginia, and went through a transition in career and loved working with homeschoolers, missed working in an English classroom, and came up with the idea of teaching writing online. We're going to talk more about how that came to be and our philosophy and the things I was excited about in just a minute. But that happened in 2001. And we've been working with Alaska schools for a really long time. We live in southeastern Virginia, and I believe we have more Alaskan students than any other state, which is just crazy to me. But we're excited that that's the case. And about 5 years ago, has it been, Mel, that you came on board?
Yeah, between 4 and 5.
Yeah, so Melanie and I homeschooled our own children, and so Melanie was super busy, doing that, and then when that became easier and our kids grew a good bit older, she was able to come on board, and she's now working specifically. She has a couple job responsibilities, but specifically, she's dedicated most of her time to working with distance learning and charter schools and their families. So the reason she's joining us, I'm going to tell you all about us. She'll probably pipe in now and then, just because her expertise is with working with schools like you guys. So, all right, here's where we start with this simple concept, and that's that writing skills are crazy important. Writing is one of the 3 R's. Ironically, one of the 2 of the 3 R's that don't actually start with R, but it's a vital part of education. Clear communication skills are vital in high school and beyond. So those looking toward higher education will require good writing skills there. Most vocations these days require some sort of writing ability. The ability to write well actually sets students apart these days because it's such a rare skill among schooled children. And it's just part of everyday life today, right? We think how often now, what's different today is that most of the writing is done with thumbs rather than keyboards or pen and paper. But the ability to communicate in written form is just a vital part of getting around in life today. So we all know this. This is not something you don't know, but writing is important. And historically, writing skills among American students are bad. There have been studies done year after year, and all of them produce the same kind of pessimistic results about writing skills among American high school students. And yet no real change has taken place in the way writing is taught in most parts of the country. And we think we've got an answer, at least in a small way. So writing is important, but teaching writing is hard. It's difficult to teach writing. We've just found over the years that one of the few areas that almost all parents feel stress and anxiety about doing a good job is the area of writing skills for middle and high school teenage type kids. Why is that? Well, teaching writing is hard because writing is hard. Writing is complex and subjective. Complex meaning there's so many different elements to good writing. And there's creative thought, and there's logical argumentation, and there's organization skills, and there's just a basic grasp of English vocabulary and syntax, and there's all the complexities of English grammar and the mechanics rules that are endless, punctuation and spelling and all those kinds of things. So you throw all that into the mix and then add to it that there's also an element of aesthetics and artistry and eloquence that's part of good writing as well. And it can be difficult. And that's where the subjective part comes in. And this is where many parents in particular are intimidated with the idea of grading student writing, because there's something subjective about it. There's no clear agreement about what good writing looks like. All of us have preferences. There's no answer key for good writing, as we've been saying for years. So because of the complexity and the subjectivity, we find many parents find teaching and evaluating their students' writing to be difficult. So we find this insecurity going on, and that's what Write at Home is all about, is to help parents feel more secure in the area, this important area of writing skills. We also find this particularly unusual situation where parents and teens often end up in conflict, butting heads over writing because of that subjectivity. Parents want to correct things and the student's not convinced that there's anything needing correcting, and we find this conflict that often emerges. So we're happy to sort of come in between and take this piece of the homeschool project off the plate of homeschooling parents so that they can invest their time in the parts of homeschooling that they enjoy and that they find most effective and fulfilling. So that's what we do. And this is how we do it. We offer a variety of online writing courses. We also offer Great Books literature courses, which I'll be talking about in just a little bit. So we do both major components of an English education, which is the writing composition skills and also reading literature skills. So we're going to talk about Write at Home first, and then we'll talk a little bit about Wasco as well. So let's start talking about Write at Home. We offer a variety of different online courses. By a variety, I mean courses geared for students in 5th or 6th grade all the way through 12th grade. We offer 32-week annual courses, 16-week semester courses, and a wide variety of 8-week workshops, which we offer in various times throughout the year. Our annual courses are our most popular. They're also what we think are most cost-effective and most effective overall, because we get kids writing a good bit over the course of those full year courses. But we do have shorter courses for folks who need something difficult for their budgets or schedule. We have live tutors that we call writing coaches, and they're the absolute key to our success. We just don't believe that there's any legitimate computerized software program that can evaluate good writing. There's something vitally human about the written word. And so we have a team of really amazing, experienced, gracious, and knowledgeable writing coaches who work individually with students. So every student in every course gets a personal writing coach who responds to all the papers that they submit. All the stuff we do is accessible online. It's all asynchronous, which I'll talk about in a minute. And our job again is to take the pressure off parents so they can get to the stuff they enjoy most in the area of homeschooling. So basically, the simple way of explaining how it works is Write at Home offers asynchronous instruction, which means there's no particular time when students have to be at the computer. We don't have any live classes for Write at Home. Wasco, it works a little bit differently, but for Write at Home, students can log in whenever it works during the week to access their printed or their print lesson, their print writing assignment. There is a weekly deadline that students have to meet. So there's a submission that students have to do each week, and there's a short quiz they have to do. But when they go about doing the quiz and completing their writing assignment is up to the student and their family. Each week, students get a short lesson on some aspect of good writing skills, which includes a short quiz, comprehension quiz. That's auto-graded, and that's part of what we offer parents to use in their grading. And then they also get each week a writing assignment to complete. So that will be a draft of a paper. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But every student has a draft of a paper to submit each week, which means either a first draft or a revision of a previous draft or a final draft of a paper they've been working on. So one of those is due every week as well. And that's true of all of our courses, annual, semester, and workshops. Our writing coaches, their primary job is to read and carefully respond to every paper that the student submits. So they just like teachers of old, mark those papers all up each week and then return them to students with all kinds of positive, encouraging, and helpful corrective comments. The papers are completed, as I mentioned, in 3 drafts. And this is a really, really important part of what we do. An important element of teaching writing effectively is to give students an opportunity to rework writing that they have submitted. If you're like me, most of my writing education growing up was being given a writing assignment, submitting it to a teacher, and then waiting for a couple weeks until it comes back with a bunch of notes in the margin and a grade at the top. And the problem with that approach to teaching writing is that it really isn't actually teaching writing. It's just simply evaluating writing, right? Teachers are just telling you whether you know how to write or not on each paper. And all students are famous for ignoring the comments in the margins. And that's frustrating to teachers. But the problem is they've already received a grade on that paper. And so it seems a bit pointless to students to read those comments. We take a different approach. And with Write at Home, a writing coach's job is to coach a student through a 3-draft process. The student submits a draft of a paper and then gets thorough feedback. On that first draft, our writing coaches emphasize holistic issues in the writing. So big picture ideas like content and organization and structure, that kind of thing, rather than the minutia of grammar and spelling and punctuation. They might comment on some of those things, but primarily they're going to focus on the big picture things, giving the students some advice and suggestions for how to rework that paper and improve it, and then resubmit it. So they're going to be able to do that a second week. Once that second draft comes in, the coaches mark it up again, this time with more of a focus on those finishing touches, the proofreading type issues like spelling and grammar. And then they return it again, and the students complete a final draft and submit that for a formal assessment using a scoring rubric, which we talk about next. So our every final draft gets a rubric grade from a writing coach, which then parents, teachers can use in their grading. It's a really awesome 10-part scoring rubric that we devised ourselves. So really proud of. It's not just a grade, it's actually a very informative tool that helps students understand what particularly was strong about the paper and what areas need work. So the rubric itself is meant to be part of the instruction. So students don't get graded until that final draft. So what you have is a coach who's an expert and a patient, wonderful person working alongside each student, draft by draft, moving towards an improved paper. And what we find is that's how students learn to write, through lots of practice and through the careful feedback of a tutor who's patiently working with them on improvement. That's why we've seen such growth in student writers over the years. Am I missing anything? You can jump in at any point. These are just a handful of our writing coaches. Actually, not all of them are still with us. This is a little bit old, but most of them are still working for us. And we've just got a really, really awesome group of coaches that work with us. They're spread out all over the country. We've got a couple overseas, actually. They're all native English speakers, but they're just fantastic people. What we look for in writing coaches are people with the right personality. We want people who love kids and who are very positive and optimistic. And then obviously you also have a good knowledge of good writing skills. We look for educators, but not just educators. We look for people with backgrounds in publishing, in professional writing or journalism or professional editing. So we've got a lot of people who actually have been or are currently writers rather than just teachers of writing. So it's a good mix of that kind of person. Really proud of our coaches. We also, by the way, do ongoing training and evaluation of our writing coaches. So all of them are constantly being coached themselves in how to get better and better at working with student writers. So a couple of our core principles. First of all, the really simple concept that we subscribe to is that students learn to write the same way they learn sports skills, athletic skills, and musical skills. That's through the combination of practice and instruction. So practice and coaching, or practice and tutoring. If you want your student to learn a musical instrument, you buy the instrument and then you get them a teacher, right? You find a class or you find an instructor who knows how to play the instrument. And what that teacher will do is meet with them once a week and give them some instruction and teach them how to practice, and then send them off to practice that, and then come back the next week. And then the teacher will observe them play, comment on how they're doing well, and comment on ways they can improve, give them some more instruction, and then give them more practice time. Works the same with sports, and it works the same with writing. Students have to write in order to develop adequate writing skills, but they can't just simply write in a vacuum. They need somebody who knows what they're doing, somebody who can observe and then reflect and comment on how they're doing. And that's the most effective way possible to teach writing. I taught for 10 years in a public school situation, and I found it really frustrating. One of the reasons I started Write at Home was because I just found it so impossible to be effective in teaching writing skills to my classes, because I was given so many students. I was required to teach 130 to 150 students each year. And I wasn't just teaching them writing, right? I had to teach grammar and literature and all kinds of stuff. And I just found it really difficult to provide enough writing practice that then got my attention and feedback in order to see real growth in their writing skills. We were lucky in those years to get 2 papers done in the course of a whole year. And that's just frankly not enough writing practice for students really to grow. In an annual course, students get about 8 to 10 completed papers, each of them done in 3 drafts over the course of a 32-week year. And I think that's why we see so much improvement. We're not a rigorous program. Write at Home is not rigorous. It's not designed to to demand a lot of work from students. Most students spend 1 or 2 hours per week on their writing on average. First drafts can sometimes take a little bit longer, but they will also be doing those final drafts and revisions of papers. And sometimes those can be very short. Some, depending on the paper and the skill of the student, might be 15 or 20 minutes in a given week of actual writing practice. But we love the pace of our courses. They don't overwhelm students. Students get sufficient practice without ever feeling like this is a really laborious task. Because we really feel like students who are motivated and excited about learning to write, who are encouraged and feel positive about what they can do, tend to learn better. They tend to show more growth, and we see more success in those students. We all know this, right? If a student wants to learn, it's really, really hard to stop them from learning, right? But if they are not wanting to learn, if they are resistant and reluctant, the first job is to get them to begin to believe in themselves and to believe in the value of what we want to teach them. So that's why we also emphasize this sort of positive approach to teaching writing. Every paper that they get back from a writing coach will contain positive feedback, not just the corrected stuff. So it's not just red ink errors that they're going to see. Coaches are going to point out the things students are doing well. And we're going to try to convince each student what we believe, and that's that every student has a writer within them that we just simply want to help emerge, right? We want to bring the gift and the talents out of each individual student. We believe every student has a unique perspective and a unique voice that ought to be heard. And so we want to emphasize that. Write at Home is also about flexibility and structure. Those seem to be contradictory, but we believe you can do both. The structure comes where students get an assignment every week, and there's a due date for that, which means they're required to do some practice. But we can work with the typically flexible schedule of homeschoolers. So we don't penalize students on our end for being late with assignments or missing assignments. We leave that up to teachers at home or parents. Because we can't check on why papers are late and don't come in. We just constantly encourage them to stick to the schedule and keep up with the program. And when students go out of town or get sick or have technical issues, we're happy to work around those things, get them back on track as best we can. So there's a structure built in. At the same time, we're willing to work with students who can't, for a variety of reasons, stick hard and fast to that structure. Our program is also for students of all abilities. We work with students who are struggling writers and reluctant writers. We love working with those kids and help getting them caught up, help getting them to believe in themselves. But we're also really good working with advanced writers, the students that parents come to us with and say, I don't know what to do with them anymore because they're better writers than I am. They've already surpassed my ability. What can you do? And we've got something for them as well. Because it's a tutorial program, we're able to work with students of a wide variety. Our writing coaches don't come with expectations of students. We read their work. The first thing we do is evaluate the kind of writing we see, And then we just simply begin to work on improvement, regardless of the kind of writer they are when they come to us. So that's our approach to that. I'm going to talk just a second here about Wasco Lit, which is our Great Books Literature program. I'm Brian Wasco. I teach that course myself, and that's why we call it Wasco Lit. It's an online program that actually has its roots in a local homeschool literature program or course that I've taught for almost 25 years now in local homeschool co-ops. So 5 years ago, we moved it into this the virtual world. We began using Zoom to teach those courses, to offer those courses online. We discovered Zoom before COVID. We knew all about it. It existed before. And so we were already up and rolling when COVID hit. We've been doing this for a long time now. So the Great Books program is for high school students. Unlike the Write at Home, which starts 5th or 6th grade, we're asking students in at least 8th grade to be jumping into the Wasco Lit program. There are currently 4 Wasco Lit courses, Lit 1, 2, 3, and 4. Again, if you start in 9th grade, it works nicely. 9th, 10th, 11th grade, 11th and 12th grade will take you all the way through the program. Obviously, we don't require that you do all 4 years, but it is a sequential set of courses that they're based on chronology. So they're chronologically oriented. Lit 1 is the literature of ancient Greece and Rome. And Lit 4 is modern lit of the 21st century. And then so we just work our way through Western civilization's great books in the course of those 4 years. Wasco Lit differs a little from Write at Home in that it's more challenging. Wasco Lit is a bit of a challenging literature program. We ask students to read really amazing and sometimes very difficult books, including many, if not most, of the classics of Western literature. So in year 1, Lit 1, they do the Iliad and the Odyssey in their entirety. They read a number of Greek dramas. We dip our toes into Greek philosophy with a little bit of Plato and Aristotle, and work our way up through the Aeneid of ancient Rome. In year 1. Year 2, we start with Beowulf and work through Shakespeare. We do a lot of Shakespeare, actually 7 different Shakespeare plays in that course. Lit 3, we start with Don Quixote and we complete it with Moby Dick, again with all kinds of great stuff in between. And then in year 4, we start with David Copperfield and we read Huckleberry Finn and The Great Gatsby, and all the way through to a 21st century novel, which isn't quite a great book yet, but just something that we like to finish with that students really enjoy. So I've been loving to introduce students to the great books through Wasco Lit for through those 4 years of classes. We offer all 4 each year. There's a Tuesday and a Wednesday course. The way Wasco Lit differs from Write at Home, obviously it's literature instead of composition, but there is a live component. So classes actually meet live by Zoom for an hour each week. Either Tuesday or Wednesday. So we do Zoom meetings that I lead myself. There's a lecture portion and then a discussion portion of each week. Students are given a reading assignment each week. I break it into 4 parts so that if students stick to my schedule, which sometimes happens, they read on the off days of the week. So if class is on Tuesday, they will have about, give or take, an hour of reading on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Monday. And then Tuesday is class time. In addition to the reading, there's a quiz they have to take. It's a short comprehension quiz on that week's reading that's auto-graded through Canvas, the program that we use, the learning program we use. And then a weekly discussion question that they have to answer as well in a short paragraph. So they have to, it's an open-ended sort of subjective question that they're asked each week on the reading that they have to give some thought to and offer a discussion question answer to each week. So they do the quiz, the discussion question, and then we meet for class each week. There are also 2 papers included in Wasco Lit courses. So they'll do 2 literary analysis papers each year, and then 1 creative project, which they submit as well, which might be a work of art or drama, or there's a variety of different options they can do for that. So that's how it works. Wasco Lit is challenging, but also really fun and engaging. Kids end up having a really good time in the class. We have a good time together. We also offer a combo option, which is a combination of a Wasco Lit course and any annual Write at Home course. And we offer those at significant discounts. So if you'd like to combine the two, that would constitute a complete language arts or English credit. And happy to do that as well.
And Wasco Lit can also be taken in a recorded version.
Oh, thank you. I forgot
So
about that.
if a student doesn't want a synchronous class, or if it doesn't work out, it's also it's less expensive to take the recorded option, because in addition to the live class time with Brian, each class has a TA that's available to answer questions and interact with discussion posts. So that's just a good option to know. And then the students who do choose the live version also have access to the recordings of the classes. So if they have to miss, or they're sick, or they just want to review the material, those are available until mid-June every year.
Right. All right. That is a bewildering amount of information right there. But that's pretty much the nutshell. We did pretty well, right?
Yeah, we did really well.
Look at that. I'd like to do it in half an hour.
Any questions?
Well, I have questions. So if
Great.
you have a child who's a struggling writer, like when you look at all the options at Write at Home, I'm just not sure where to place my child. So what would you suggest as a good starting point with a child who is maybe a 9th grader, 10th grader, high school kid, but who is really struggling with writing?
Right. Great question. We get that a lot. And I always tell them the same thing. Start them in Lit 1.
High school.
I'm sorry, High School 1. Yeah. High school composition 1.
Annual.
The annual. This is what I recommend.
It's counterintuitive, because a lot of people feel like, oh, I just want to put them in a short class because I'm not sure if they're going to like it or not. But really what they need is more practice, not less, because then they'll become more comfortable. And we also have an amazing money back guarantee. So if a parent or student is dissatisfied, like they think Write at Home is terrible, it just, like it's something we did wrong, we give 100% of the money back, or a purchase order back. But if it's just not a good fit, we prorate it. So it doesn't matter at what point you just think, oh, it's just not working, there's nothing wrong with how it's set up, but it's just not good for us. So that's so there's no risk in doing the annual version. And what a struggling writer needs is more practice, not less practice.
Right. And the reason I say to start with Comp 1 is, because of the tutorial nature of our program, is students will, or our writing coaches will identify the student's ability right away. And they'll just tailor their feedback to the ability level of the student. Our courses don't necessarily get harder from Comp 1 to Comp 4. Except we add a research paper in Lits 2, 3, and 4, Comp 2, 3, and 4, because high school, colleges really want research papers. But other than the fact that there is a research paper in those other classes, they're not necessarily more difficult classes. I don't really know how to create writing assignments that are more difficult than other writing assignments. It just depends on the student. It's just the material that we cover and the lesson content is a little different from year to year. And the material in Composition 1 was designed to be sort of an introduction to high school level writing material. So it's just a good place to start. And no writing coach ever says this student isn't ready for this class. Like literally that's not even conceivable in our program. Like every student is there to be taught. These are tutors. They're not teachers, right? They're not classroom teachers who have expectations of students. They're tutors that are just working through the structured program to help students develop writing skills. So that's the easiest start.
Why don't you tell me when it would be good to pick those 8-week sessions, like on the research paper, or on when should we choose those?
Well, a couple things. There are some folks who just have really crazy schedules and they can't fit in a full year course for whatever reason. They travel or they're busy with some sort of extracurricular stuff. And so they're just simply looking for shorter courses. There are also families who are they're just not interested in, I didn't really talk about this that much. Our annual courses and semester courses are really broad, and they cover both academic writing and creative writing. So they'll get some descriptive writing and some narrative writing, some expository and some persuasive writing in all of those years, because we think there's a value in a wide variety of kinds of writing. But there are some families who just would rather let's just get the academic stuff out of the way. So they'll say, we're just going to take essay courses and research paper courses, and we're going to skip the narrative writing and the descriptive creative stuff. So that's one reason. Another thing that happens is some students come to us much later. So they may just find out about us in their 12th grade year, and they're behind in their writing skills, and they just want to focus on the academic stuff. Yeah, we just need to get ready for college. So we're just going to do essay writing and literary analysis papers and the research paper. So those things. And then there's some folks, a handful of these who come to us at the other end, where their kids just love creative writing. They don't want to do the other stuff. And some parents are just looking for a creative writing thing. So they'll do the descriptive writing and narrative writing workshops. And we have a short story workshop too for those kids. So it was just to help accommodate that. So I used to talk about it as that the annual courses are sort of this holistic approach, broad writing skills at the high school level. And workshops are more of an a la carte way of doing it, where you kind of pick and choose the pieces and make them work the way you want.
But if you're looking like for a full, like if you're looking at like a 9th through 12th grade, like how am I going to cover writing in high school? If you take the annual versions of 1, 2, 3, and 4, you'll get every workshop and you'll get everything, because all of those academic workshops are woven into the annual courses.
Except for the short story.
Except for short story. That would be the only one that wouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the semester courses came about. Really, we just offered them because people would find out about us in November, and it's too late to take an annual course. So we created a condensed, abridged version of our annual courses, where we just took out a bunch of assignments, and a number of the lessons, and made a 16-week version that we then offer in the fall and the spring. But that also is another situation where some parents are just, we're so busy in the fall, we're just going to do this in the spring. So that works for us too. Just be aware of this, because this is a really common mistake that we just haven't figured out how to explain this better. Our semester courses are abridged versions of our annual courses, and we offer them 2 times a year. We offer them in the fall and in the spring, but the courses we offer in the fall and the spring are identical courses. So the semester version of Comp 1 is the same in the fall and the spring. It's not the
part 1 and part 2.
Right. It's not part 1. We've had so many people over the years take Comp 1 in the fall, and I say, okay, now we're going to take the spring one. And I was like, that's the same course.
We've rewritten that part of our website so many times trying to clarify.
Yeah. I was like, you were looking for an annual course, so that's what you should have taken. But anyway, just so you know that it's just a 16-week, abridged version of the 32-week courses is what the semester courses are.
No, this is all really helpful. So I understand that there are certain entry points into each course. And so I couldn't just decide like mid-October, I'd like to join, this annual course. So let me know, what is the deadline for families to enter into the school year right now into either a semester or an annual course?
Okay, we accept students into the start of the course 2 weeks beyond the first day. Right? Is it 2 weeks? 2 weeks beyond the first day of the class, because of the structure, it's not super rigorous. It's fairly easy for students to get caught up if they start within 2 weeks of the start of the course. Obviously, we'd much prefer if students registered prior to the start of the class, but we will go a little bit later for folks who are just behind. The first. I guess the course actually begins. What's the date?
August 26th is the day that the students get their first assignment.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks after that is when it would technically be closed.
Mhm.
We have made exceptions for our distance learning and charter schools if the purchasing department is behind. We know like a lot of schools have grown quite a bit with COVID and enrollments up, and sometimes that causes, and we work with schools in several states. So in that case, I just need, like, that would be something somebody could reach out to me and we could make an exception for a handful of students. But in general, 2 weeks after the first day of class is the last time we would enroll students.
And that's true for all our courses. So even the
Mhm.
workshops, they're staggered throughout the year. There are 7 different workshop sessions. Those will also, you could enroll up to 2 weeks into the start of each of those. Wasco Lit, the Lit courses don't start until the Tuesday after Labor Day. So they start a little bit later.
And the same with that, 2 weeks after the first day, we close out enrollment.
Okay, that's really helpful to know, and something I just want to mention because I think it's really genius is you do a lot of your shorter 8-week workshops over the summer. And I love that as a parent of a high schooler that I can say, you know what, we're going to knock writing out of the way this summer. And then we'll just focus on literature during the school year. So I just want to mention that to parents who might want to plan ahead and think through that. And I also just want to second what you're saying about you guys being really understanding and family friendly and willing to give refunds, because last year I purchased it for my daughter and then I didn't realize I had it. And got a couple months in and realized we hadn't started. And I called you guys up and you refunded my money 100%. So I just want families to know that this company actually really does work with you and really does refund your money if you don't use the course or if you're unhappy. So you guys are great. And thank you.
Sure. Just want to clarify, it's not like we're refunding money often.
Yeah.
Just for those of us who forget that we enrolled our kid in your class. So
Those kinds of
sorry
things
about that, guys.
all the time. That happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had one more question. Does anybody else have a question? Well, I think for just a second.
I think Teresa does.
Yeah, hi there.
Hi.
Hi.
I enjoyed your presentation. I just want to encourage you folks that you're talking about synchronous and asynchronous, and a lot of our teachers are going to jump on the asynchronous plan to watch this because it's heavy front loading right now with our students. And then the other thing I wanted to say at the beginning of your talk, you were talking about how Alaska comprises a lot of your students.
Yeah.
And we are a very homeschool friendly state, very supportive. Lots of money goes to support homeschool students. So we're really proud of that.
We love it.
Yeah, so do we. It works out great for us. And then my sister, her kids are all almost 30 now, but when she started homeschooling, she was in your program and it was great for her family. I was actually her sponsor teacher in this school. So it was great. I loved the work samples and I loved how you guys rolled out your classes. So this is one of my moms right now. This is Jamie. She has a couple questions for you.
Okay.
So when I was looking to enroll, I see that you guys offer, so I have a 7th grader and you have middle school 1, 2, and 3. So is that lining up with 6th, 7th, 8th? Is it grade based?
It actually is. We originally called it 6th, 7th, and 8th. Let me say this. I mentioned before, it doesn't matter where you start the students because it's all tutorial. That still remains true for the most part. The one exception, honestly, is middle school 1. That course is by design for younger or struggling students. So it begins with sentence writing activities, followed by paragraph writing activities. So there's a good bit of review.
I think it's week 9 before they're expected to write a full paper. So it's like 4 weeks of sentence writing.
Right.
4 weeks of.
So for middle schoolers that are behind or struggling or intimidated, we will often recommend starting with 1. And so for that reason, we changed the names from 6th, 7th, and 8th to 1, 2, and 3, just because we wouldn't want an 8th grader who's struggling to have to start with 6th grade composition.
Yeah.
So we just called it Comp 1.
The other thing I would want to mention too is I've talked to moms in particular where what their kids needed more than even like real concrete instruction is encouragement and the ability to feel confident that they could do something. So we have had parents throughout the years who have chosen to put their students in like a middle school one, simply because they felt like what would be the most beneficial to their students is to feel capable.
Mhm.
And we actually had one story where an 18-year-old who had some very severe learning challenges. She started in middle school one, and it was the first class she was ever able to do independently. And the next year she did high school two and wrote a full research paper. And it was because what that child needed was to feel like I can do this, and I've got somebody who's convinced me I could do it, and I'm learning a lot too. So there's that to weigh into with your student, like what is the most important thing. And sometimes it's not the purely academic component of a class.
Okay, great. And then the other thing was, question was just kind of, what is it, the actual kind of turning in papers look like, and like how long does the grading process take?
Yeah, great question. Students will write the paper in any word processor. With the only one we run into trouble with is Pages. So if you're a Mac user and you write in Pages, you have to remember to save it as a doc file. But we accept doc or docx or PDF files. And it's a really simple process. Students click, there's an assignment page, and there's a button at the top that says submit assignment, and you click it and it opens a window on your computer, and you direct them to the paper and click upload, and it just submits it really simply. It's the kind of thing almost every student knows how to do these days. We do offer some tutorial videos though. If you need help with that, we'll show you how to do it. When you enroll in a course, in addition to the course, you're also automatically enrolled in what we call the Welcome to Write at Home course, which we just encourage everybody to go through, to walk through all the sort of step-by-step things about how to engage with the technology and that kind of thing. Students will learn it one time; they'll never have to be reminded. Honestly, it's pretty simple. And the turnaround for the grading, I'm glad you asked that, because I don't usually just talk about this because it sometimes confuses people. And the way we do assignments is they get a first draft assignment in the first week, which is due the next week, right? So by the time they submit that paper for the next week, they get a second assignment, which is another first draft. So if you call the first assignment A and the second assignment B, so they do assignment A, they turn that in, and they get a brand new assignment B, and they'll submit another first draft the next week. The reason we do that is we want our writing coaches to have enough time to provide comments on the first one. So when they submit the second paper, B, they will be getting A back, the first draft that they'd submitted, with all the comments from their writing coach. And that week's assignment will be to do a revision of A. And then they'll get their B paper back, and they'll do a revision of B. Then they'll get their A paper again, and they'll do the final draft of A. And then they'll get their B paper back, and then they'll do the final draft of B. So we end up alternating A and B, alternating these two papers in order to give each writing coach a full week to read and evaluate all the student writing. So,
and then the student always has a week to get that
Right.
paper back to the writing coach. So everybody gets a week to do their job, whether you're a student or a coach.
right. So by staggering assignments like that, we're able to give everybody a full week.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Sure.
And I'm just wondering if you would tell us a little bit about what it would look like as a parent. What is our involvement? What do we see? How do we see it?
Yeah. Great question. You can jump in on this too.
Okay.
But why don't you go ahead and tell them? You're better at this.
Well, because I designed the parent portal.
That's right.
So our kids did write at home in Wascolit. They did the live version of Wascolit though, because their dad taught it. So in a nutshell, parents can be involved as much or as little as you'd like, but we've created a set of tools for parents and teachers to make that involvement streamlined and efficient. So whenever a student is enrolled, a parent account is automatically created and connected to the student. So if you have 3 children and they're all doing Write at Home, they would all be connected to your account. And when you logged into your Write at Home account, you'd be able to observe all 3 students from that one login. You'd be able to communicate privately with their writing coach. You can see all the coach comments. And there's also an app. If you like using your phone, you can set notifications to know whether a student is late on an assignment. You can basically tailor it to the way that you want to. So one of the things that I just finished recently is like a best practices for parents. It's like 10 tips for how to use Write at Home to get the most out of Write at Home. So that's something that's going to go out by email to all of the parents about 2 weeks into the class, so that you know how to do all that stuff. So, the short answer is as much or as little as you want. You don't have to offer feedback. You don't have to read their drafts. I mean, if you've got a middle schooler, you might want to help them learn how to submit the paper the first time, but typically kids are so good at technology, they might teach you how to use it. We do use Canvas. If you're familiar with the learning management system, Canvas, it's a pretty popular one among schools and educational companies and colleges. So
yeah, so the short answer is parents can be involved as much as they like. We don't care. We've had parents over the years who just will sit down with students and help them write their papers. We don't think that's a good idea in the long run, but some parents really are careful with that, or they want to look them over before students submit them. We just leave that up to parents. Most parents, however, really want to outsource writing, so they tend to not be very involved.
Tend to be more like the overseer.
Yeah, and what we want there is we just would love parents to just stay up to date, make sure that they log in enough to make sure their students are keeping up with the work, and that they would at least look over the feedback that they're getting from the writing coach on occasion, just so that it's meeting their expectations, that they're getting the kind of feedback they would like. But some parents are way more involved and read everything and then comment back and forth with the writing coach, and that's welcome as well. Like Melanie said, it's really simple because of the technology. The student will have a login and the parent has their own login that gives them access to all their students, whether they have one or many.
And we also, for those of you who are teachers who are listening, we also create teacher dashboards. Those are by request. I have a schools update email list that I send out, and there's a whole section of our website we've created for the schools that we work with that explain how we work. One other thing I forgot to mention.
And what that means is a teacher can log in with one login and see all their Write at Home students.
Like we have teachers who have 30 kids at Write at Home, and they're all in one place.
Yeah.
And so it makes it really easy to download work samples and to look at the rubric score to assign grades more accurately. One of the newer things we developed, our writing coaches actually asked us for this last year. We have what we call a special consideration form, and that can be filled out either by a parent or a teacher. If there's anything about a student that you think would help the writing coach more effectively, it can be anything from English as their second language to they're a little bit lazy and need to be pushed, or they lack confidence and they need encouragement. So whatever, like as a parent or a teacher, you think, boy, I really wish my kid's writing coach knew this. We have a way to get that information to the coach in a streamlined way.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling us all of that. I had no idea. So super, super helpful. And I, as a parent, was just wanting to make sure I knew when my kids were supposed to be turning things in, so I can help that happen. So yeah, well, thank you. And I just want to tell parents who are listening that since this is all digital content, this is something you would need to purchase yourself and get reimbursed for. And if finances are an issue and you can't purchase that, just talk to your sponsor teacher. But for the most part, this would be something a parent would purchase and then get reimbursed for on your online system. So any other questions before we let everybody go?
Here we go. I think we have one more.
Sorry,
Okay.
might have already covered this, and I apologize if you did. So I'm kind of planning out my son's schedule kind of right now, thinking it through. I know there's one assignment a week, but how much video time is, like how much instruction time is? It's not like a once a week and then it's independent?
Right. So for Write at Home, the writing portion, obviously the literature course, there's an hour live class. But for Write at Home and our writing courses, it's a short reading lesson. So it's a print lesson. It's a PDF basically that they will read and then take a 5-question comprehension quiz.
Like 15
minutes, 20 minutes. And it's whenever it works for you. They can log in. It becomes available at the start of the week and it's available
Every Thursday. it
every
becomes-
Thursday becomes available for them to look at until the next Thursday. So yeah, 15 or 20 minutes to read the lesson content and take the quiz. And then they've got the writing assignment,
Okay.
which is typically an hour to 2 hours on average for normal students per week.
Yeah, unless they're doing a research paper.
Right. Research papers are a little bit longer on some weeks. And then some weeks they're not very long either. But yeah.
It's great information. Thank you for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, glad to do it. Nice to meet everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Brian and Melanie. This has been so helpful, even for those of us familiar with Right at Home. This has just been super informative. So if you have any questions, you can go to Right at Home. Their website's super user-friendly. And you can also talk to your sponsor teacher. But again, thanks for joining us and sharing your time and your wisdom with us, and for creating such a great writing program for us moms who don't want to teach writing to our kids. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
enjoy.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we'll have a wonderful rest of the day. And thanks again.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.